A big part of the reason why people were excited was because she wasn't Biden, which meant that she was going to be more dynamic and potentially even change some of these policies that Biden was running on. They're banking on the idea that people just simply aesthetically are excited that it's no longer Biden.
Right now, Dana Bash's exclusive interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Tonight from Battleground, Georgia, a watershed moment in the 2024 campaign, and you will see it only here on CNN. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and vice presidential nominee Tim Walz.
Hello. Hi. Hi. How are you?
Tonight, the new Democratic ticket in their first interview.
Hi. Hi, crew.
In the final sprint to Election Day,
1, 2, 3.
their top priorities for the country. What would you do on day one in the White House? The tough questions on their records. The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already? What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word? Taking on Donald Trump. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That fateful phone call from Joe Biden.
I'll give you a little too much information.
And their take on those viral convention images.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
With just days until early voting begins, a defining moment in the race for the White House. CNN's exclusive interview of the Democratic nominees starts now. Good evening. We're live from Savannah, Georgia. I'm Dana Bash, and this is a state very much up for grabs. In between a whirlwind series of stops, I sat down with the Democratic candidate for president and her running mate today at Kim's Cafe here in Savannah. Inside, nothing was off the table, and you will see our interview in its entirety. The vice president first as her party's standard bearer, responding to her critics and answering our questions.
Judging by the clips that came up earlier, she's not gonna say anything crazy on Israel. Okay, Dana Bash is a massive Israel dick rider.
Vice President Harris thought she would be.
We're going to Georgia. Yes. 7th trip there this year for me.
And it seemed
a surprise
very
nominee
positive.
for president just months from Election Day. Set in motion
No, you
after
can't have
a
subtitles.
stunning debate.
Look,
Unfortunately.
if we finally beat Medicare,
Some within your own party are wondering if President Biden should even step aside. What do you say to that?
There was a slow start, but it was a strong finish.
And then an extraordinary decision.
I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Oh, things were so good.
What usually takes years of planning, coming together in a matter of weeks.
Things were so good. Things were so good.
After a historic nomination at the convention in Chicago,
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Then not so good.
the Harris-Walz ticket is now pushing forward with the shortest presidential campaign in modern history.
What did you hear from voters here?
People are very optimistic.
We joined them on the trail as they visited the battleground of Georgia, just 68 days from the election.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with me and bringing the bus. The bus tour is well underway here in Georgia. You have less time to make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward. in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is
it
about
feels like she's playing catch up.
in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda, too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be. And I think many of these things that the Vice President's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We did it in Minnesota. To have a federal partner in this, unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it. Which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging. What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years. What we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited. I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that any
You
longer.
maintain Bidenomics is a success.
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America. What we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues.
Yeah, it's a hard. These are hard
energy
questions.
is a
That's why
big
she was
one.
avoiding interviews.
When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of
Do I
banning
consider this a populist
fracking."
ticket?
Fracking, as
No.
you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019,
Why
I
is
believe...
fracking a big issue?
in
Western Pennsylvania.
You said, you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed.
She wants to win
I believe
Pennsylvania.
it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration. As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that deals with, that
Still
affects the southern border
So
of
funny.
the U.S.
After all this, she's going to lose Pennsylvania. I'm going to die.
There were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation
Dog,
again?
that link is from 2019. Shut up.
I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I
Pro-fracking,
recognize the problem.
pro-border.
Generally speaking,
Welcome back.
how should voters
Republican candidates
look
from
at some of
2020.
the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter,
We hear
to
you.
which we should apply metrics
see
that
you.
include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. In 4
Kamala
years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus, and it is important to find a common
said
place of
he
understanding
wants to give a MAGA
of
hat
where
to
we
her.
can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in
That's a
particular in
bingo.
mind. I got
3 for
68
3.
days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before
Would
the
you
horse.
like to
but I
drop
would.
out
I
and let a
think-
Republican win?
I think it's
Yes.
really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
That was just the start of our wide-ranging conversation, and we have some never-before-shared details about the phone call that changed everything between President Joe Biden and Vice President
You
Kamala
paid the
Harris.
piper. There you go. I'm telling you.
I'm just curious, staying on
She
President
did the job.
Biden.
That's
When
why
he
this
called
interview
you and
was
said he
positive.
was-
Okay?
What was that
Now
like?
the
And
rest
did
of it
he
is like,
offer
oh, what do you
endorse
think?
right away?
What's
Did you
happening
ask
between you and Biden? Like, this is
It
spoilers.
was-
I'm not going to show you right now because I want to see the actual interview while it happens. So I'm cutting this. But yeah, she did the job. She was like, she paid the piper. She said all the right wing things. Yeah. Okay. Listen to me. Listen to me, chat. Every single thing that she was asked, they were hard questions. She should have had infinitely better answers. Okay. Deflect. She should have deflected. She should have, and I'll tell you exactly how I would have answered some of these questions in a moment. Actually, right now that it's on break. Number 1, the question about fracking. Okay. What she has to say in that circumstance is obviously she wants Pennsylvania. That's why she can't say she's anti-fracking, right? What you're supposed to say in this situation is, listen, the beautiful people of Pennsylvania are not like predisposed to fracking as a job. It's just a job, okay? These people deserve an honest living. Okay. And what we attempt to solve in this circumstance, what we attempt to solve in the situation is to offer them a job. Currently, as it stands, 75 to 85% of subsidies on the energy front go to the fossil fuel industry. Those subsidies are what make these jobs available to people in Western Pennsylvania. Okay. We should restructure said subsidies to ensure that we can, one, in the short term, not eviscerate fracking altogether, because we do not want to destroy these communities and have them resemble, West Virginia. But the goal should be to move away from our reliance on a finite resource of energy. There is only a finite amount of fossils in the ground. Okay? Obviously, we're not going to abolish fracking tomorrow, as my administration has not done. Having said that, however, the goal is so that we do not have to rely on China to make up for the energy crisis that is coming up. And it's not just me saying this. Obviously, British Petroleum, ExxonMobil, and many other oil giants recognize that, which is why they're hedging their bets by dumping a lot of the funds that they get from the subsidies that we offer them, taxpayer dollars offer them, directly into renewable energy companies, because they too understand that this is not infinite, okay? We don't want China stealing our lunch money as they have done so far. That's why I said we're not going back. We're not looking backwards. We're looking forward. That's number one. Number two, when she was asked about the border, okay, way too long left this response. What the fuck are you talking about? That response was almost identical to the same time frame that she had to respond to the questions. Okay. Number two, when she was asked about the border bill, oh my Lord, dude, listen, completely ceded ground to Republican commentary at this point. It's just literally just fascism light. The idea that like, oh, I am super strong against, criminals, whatever. Nobody believes that. You're a Democrat. Okay. Nobody believes that. It's so stupid. If you're gonna have this, if you're gonna receive this question, the least you should do is to turn around and say something along the lines of, listen, a lot of Americans have been misguided by Republican hysteria on this issue of the border. America is a nation of immigrants. I am a descendant of immigrants. I myself am running for president. This is what makes this country great, okay? Donald Trump's vitriolic rhetoric around migrants is genuinely devastating. And now they're waving mass deportation flags at the Republican National Convention. And not a single person has asked how that would happen. That means Border Patrol. That means SWAT, BORTAC, militarized Border Patrol at people's doors, doing dragnets on brown communities. This is terrifying. This is not what America is about. He keeps talking about Eisenhower and the 1.3 million Mexicans and Mexican descendants, or American citizens of Mexican descent, that were forcibly extracted and deported from this country. This is a devastating prospect. That's precisely why I'm running against Joe Biden, against Donald Trump, to stop this from happening.
As voters are getting to know Kamala Harris, they want answers on how she will make their lives better. She heard that here at Sandfly Barbecue in Savannah.
What we're going to do to increase access to capital for small businesses, I'll be rolling out next week. Part of what we're going to be doing in terms of a tax credit.
On the trail, she talks about her experience, years in the courtroom as a district attorney and eventually California's attorney general. She wants to reframe the contest as the prosecutor versus the felon.
I know Donald Trump's type. I've been dealing with them my whole career.
The former president is turning to a well-defined playbook of personal attacks.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Tim Walz hasn't said shit
days,
so far.
The nominees will meet face-to-face for the first time.
She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
If you got something to say,
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
And
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8 to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution, where Israel is secure and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Governor Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war, did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar's not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
One other question, because again, this is all new.
Yeah.
I mean, this was not.
Why don't we give one to the
many days
Palestinians?
ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against the vice president's position on this.
Interview's looking real bad.
And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Walz is kind of carrying, but it's still bad.
Up next, the moment that changed everything when Kamala Harris got a phone call from President Biden that he was dropping out of the race.
It was It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces.
Speaking of those baby nieces, the vice president also opens up about a viral picture from the convention that meant so much to so many. And Tim Walz talks about that convention moment with his son that brought many viewers to tears.
You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
Wow. The Kamala Harris Israel answer, disastrous, absolute disaster. Problem is she also doesn't have charisma to like carry it. You know what I mean? Remember what I told you? Like people will project their own opinions onto like their candidate if they like the candidate. And certainly plenty of people will project their own opinion. They'll be like, "Oh, what more do you want?" She says she wants a ceasefire. The reality is, how many people will do that? Okay. And it is a very clear, to be clear, interviews bad on positions, but not really bad performance wise, like GOP is such what we're expecting. I mean, it's not great. What about saying we need a ceasefire is bad? You think that was my major point of contention with that? Okay, I'm not going to answer silly questions right now because we don't have enough time. Kamala Harris needs to separate herself from Joseph Robinette Brandon. Joseph Robinette Brandon is objectively unpopular on the issue of Israel. Kamala Harris currently is unpopular on Israel. She will only become less popular on Israel as time goes on, as she has moments like this one. Okay? Of course, Dana Bash is going to ask an Israel-related question. So far, she's pro-fracking, pro-border wall, she talked about how prosecutorial she was as a cop. And on top of that, said that she wants a Republican cabinet. She's open to having a Republican member in her cabinet. And also, she is staying the course on Israel. Okay? She then she said this. There it is. So no change on policy. Dana specifically asked, so no weapons transfers, like no arms embargo or anything like that. Harris said, no change of policy. She said, no change of policy. No, we need to get a deal done. From a recent YouGov poll regarding military aid to Israel, America should decrease military aid 35%, maintain current level 25%, increase military aid 20%. Okay. She also then said, mass rapes were happening on young people by Hamas terrorists and yada, yada, yada. Once again, obviously, no shift in policy, no shift in tone. Oh, she is completely cemented. So 65% don't want a decrease in military spending. I love that. That's one way to look at this poll. The other way to look at it is the plurality wants no military, or a decrease in military aid in this situation means like we have to stop giving arms transfers to Israel, okay, until the ceasefire proposal is done. I've seen this actual proposal. I've seen the actual YouGov poll, and I've seen all of these other polls that have been conducted. People immediately responded to me on my tweet with this dumbass CNN title. She would lose a lot of votes if she were to say she favors an arms embargo.
Welcome back.
And this is based on a CNN poll yesterday.
Georgia,
Thank God we spent 3 hours looking at the CNN poll earlier, where we found that the majority of Americans want to stop weapons transfers to Israel. That same poll shows that. They are lying about it.
His re-election bid, but before he tweeted the news, Biden called his vice president, and for the first time, we are hearing about that phone call and exactly what Kamala Harris was doing when she answered. But we started this discussion with the moment that set all of this in motion, CNN's presidential debate, and whether President Biden was strong enough to lead this nation again.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, you know, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, are you sure? And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative.
Oh, so boring.
Be it on what we have accomplished around finally investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together and have confidence in who we are as America and grow that alliance, what we have done to stand true to our principles, including one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career, including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
A passionate defense of the man who chose her to be his running mate 4 years ago. 4 years later, Harris made a choice of her own. And with Governor Walz's rise to national prominence, a star was born at the convention, Gus Walz. We'll hear about that moment between father and son, and the woman who could make history in the Oval Office on this iconic photo.
Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
Bro, I swear to God, like, people just don't understand. Like, the Democratic Party doesn't understand that, like, a big part of the reason why people were excited was because she wasn't Biden, which meant that she was going to be more dynamic and potentially even change some of these policies that Biden was running on. Okay, one of those policies was Israel-Palestine as well. they're banking on the idea that people just simply aesthetically are excited that it's no longer Biden. And also simultaneously banking on the idea that Republicans don't have enough oppo on Kamala Harris and were caught with their dicks out in the wind, pissing against the goddamn wind, and they don't have enough time to develop enough attacks against Kamala Harris, which to a certain degree is true. And therefore, her approval ratings will just soften from this point on, and she will skirt by. Okay? The problem is they expect progressives won't vote for Trump. I mean, it's true. And progressives won't vote for Trump. So they're just literally banking on picking up as many like Trump, never Trumpers as they possibly can pick up, and hope that like her zero swag candidacy will be enough to you know, get a bunch of young people of color to go out and vote. I mean, so far polls show that, you know, she's getting there. But if you think that this interview is good, you have to be Aaron Rupar. I don't think it's good at all. I think she does not have the oomph necessary to carry across tepid neoliberal policies, okay? Like, you need to be Barack Obama to be able to do that. Barack Obama 2012, okay? Right now, Kamala Harris, at the very least, needs to be Barack Obama 2008. Because if she doesn't have the rhetorical skills, like the skills of an expert orator, she at the very least needs to make up for it by being like, I'm gonna do things that are gonna help people, okay? Instead, she's cutting away at the momentum that she has by just being like, I'm gonna be exactly like Biden, except I'm not old. To be fair, several progressive groups, uncommitted leaders in Detroit, Muslim Women for Harris, have recently said they want people to support and vote for Harris because they feel they can move her in office. I mean, I disagree with them. I don't think they will be able to move her in office at all. I think it's ridiculous. They said that about Biden too. Okay. I mean, who knows? Good luck to them. Okay. I wish him the best. I wish those people the very best. I hope what they are doing is not a fruitless endeavor. Do I believe that you will be able to move her? No. Okay. Do I believe that we will be able to move her more than Trump? Again, no. Like the equation is, oh, well, you can't move Trump as well. Yeah, I know. Okay. But neither can you move the Democratic Party. And the equation is becoming clear that it is like nearly identical to the Biden situation in front of us, where it's like, you know,
we're back live from
they're just firmly committed to these positions. They don't care. They don't want to like make any sort of bold proclamations that might actually captivate a larger voter base. They're not going to do that. They're just going to go with the safe route, what they perceive as the safe route.
But it is a little-known guy outside of his home state, where Minnesota nice is a source of pride. But behind all of that folksy humor and flannel, Tim Walz is far from just being Mr. Nice Guy when it comes to needling Donald Trump. Governor, you obviously have spoken to voters all over your state for years.
Yeah.
What are you learning in a place like Georgia?
We're seeing explosion in small business growth. The one thing is workforce and child care, because workers have to have child care.
Campaigning with Tim Walz.
Don't do it.
I'll just tell you, like, this, I'm sorry, guys. If you want me to be lived up about this shit, like, I can't lie to you. It's just, it just hurts to see something so obvious.
With this word.
These guys are just weird.
Known as a folksy father of two from rural America, now a running mate.
All my enthusiasm is gone. Like, I'm so deflated. Not that it matters. I mean, I'm one guy who gives a shit.
Whatever crazy thing pops into his mind.
And finding his own rhythm with his new boss.
What'd you order? Brisket and greens and mac and cheese.
What about you?
I had the brisket and coleslaw on this.
And what about the spice situation, the Tabasco? What's happening with that?
I'm going to let him speak for himself.
The vice president's growing peppers at her residence, so she's trying to like bring me along on this. You know, Minnesotans.
It's okay.
Like, it honestly feels like they saw a crumb of momentum and then thought, oh my God, like, we have this in the bag. Let's not change anything.
Moments, aside, of course, from the addresses that you both gave, but standout moments that were perhaps unexpected during the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son, Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, that's my dad.
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that. I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment, to understand what was really important, to have my son feel a sense of pride in me, that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you know, you try and protect your kids, you know, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is, talking about the era we're in, is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can show some of these things, and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that there was, I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know, and life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
You know, I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment, for all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was
the one thing that she's
deeply
nailing
touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you.
This was Vice President Harris's first real unscripted setting where voters could see and hear her explain some of her policy positions now and how they differ from before she became vice president, and why. And this was the first we heard those details about an extraordinary phone call from a president dropping out of the race.
Austin is a great example of this, because he's going to vote for Kamala Harris no matter what. You know what I mean? He doesn't give a shit. But he recognizes that this doesn't look well to maybe a broader audience.
Sit down with us. We hope to bring that interview to you as well. We have plenty of CNN special coverage ahead. I want to go to my friend and colleague, Abby Phillip, who is standing by with some of the best political minds in the business. Abby?
We have them all here. Dana, you've given us a lot to chew on. Our hats off to you. Thank you very much.
Seemed fine. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a disaster, but like, think about that, dude. Oh, wow, it wasn't a disaster? Like, what are we doing here? This isn't Joe Biden, chat. Even that is like a very Brandonian attitude to have about an interview that was like a little contentious in the beginning, but then was mostly a puff piece. The fuck do you mean? Are we back? Is she just Joe Biden reskinned? Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Comfortable comfort that we haven't seen before from her. We didn't see certainly the last time she ran. She was very connected to her word. She seemed strong. She seemed competent. She seemed like someone who could be president of the United States. That was the first test. One thing, because I know we got a lot of...
They're going to do Glaze now. They're going to give her props because she went moderate.
Well, two things then. I think that she handled the issue of her changes or perceived changes.
Honestly, it's just this literally is because Donald Trump is so ass. It doesn't matter. Like, that's it. Donald Trump is so ass. She still has a chance of winning this election. Overall, though, like, the bar for our politics has been set so low that Kamala not physically crapping herself during an interview is now considered a brilliant performance, but in reality, she's a mess. Platitudes mixed with lies, mixed with nonsense, with saccharine slathered on by Dana Bash. I mean, who gives a fuck what Ben Shapiro has to say? He should worry about his own candidate. But, like, overall, to be fair, I think her lame duck campaign is enough to get across the finish line. I think so, too. If you're, like, worried, chatters, about nothing other than, making sure that Trump is not president, fear not. The Trump campaign has been bouldering towards death and destruction at a rapid clip, okay? But this, and I repeat myself, like I said, with Joseph Robinette Brandon, and I will repeat myself now with Joseph Robinette Brandon, but in a younger woman's body, should not be a close race at all, okay? Trump got shot and almost killed, and it didn't do anything for his candidacy. Okay, like that is crazy. That's how unpopular he is. People are that committed to hating him. Meanwhile, you can look forward to tepid neoliberalism in our near future. Kamala, thank you for the fire. Get this us. Why don't you support Harris on these newfound partisan ideals that might uplift people as much as you uplift non-subs when you announce that at the top of the hour, I break after every hour? I'm so done. I'm so done. I mean, it's just like I read that. I'm done. I've like you can get me with the silliest shit right now. Okay? You can that's it. You got me. Okay? 3-minute ad break is here. I don't even care. Okay? I've accepted my fate, dude.